Apple seldomly lasts the bunch to announce new phones, but that's how it is this year. That could inherently give it the edge, especially when Samsung was the first to launch its flagship, meaning Apple had a lot of time in its hands to beat its rival. Today, I'm putting what should be the two best camera phones around in a head-to-head showdown to see which is better for photography. This is 200 photos with the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the Galaxy S24 Ultra. The iPhone 16 Pro Max uses a similar triple camera setup as before, but this year's change is found in the Ultrawide. It's now a 48 megapixel one with a wider f2.2 aperture, which means it has better light gathering than the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Paired with its 48 megapixel main shooter and 12 megapixel telephoto with 5x optical zoom, it's still a power-packed camera system. Meanwhile, the Galaxy S24 Ultra set the bar early in the year in what I want in a camera phone, and that's despite the controversy around its zoom camera, which goes from a 10x optical zoom to a 5x1 instead. Still, I've seen that it pulls out incredible results, but it's going to need a lot more to beat the newer iPhone 16 Pro Max. In my hands-on, I talked about the biggest upgrade with the new iPhone 16 is the camera control button. And now that my review's out, I still think it's the biggest change and upgrade. I might be still on the fence about it, but let me give you a rundown of how it works. The most helpful thing about it is that I could quickly launch the camera. Press the button, even when the phone's locked, it jumps right into it, so that if I have the shot, I could take it right away. So what does that mean for the action button? Well, now you can program it to do something else. When you're in the camera app, it acts like a shutter key because you do a firm press to take the photo, and if you want, there's also video, but you gotta hold down the button for the entire time, and then once you're done, you let go. This is where it gets a little bit fiddly because now, in order to get some of the other modes, you gotta slightly tap it, double tap it to get to go into that mode, and then you have to actually use the scrolling method to actually switch between them. For the average person, I like that it gives those controls at their fingertips, but it doesn't quite act like a normal shutter button that I'm used to in a dedicated mirrorless camera. Also, the button's on the short side, so I gotta do a lot more scrolling if I want to get from one zoom to the other. I don't necessarily think it's an upgrade, but it's a good addition. Does the camera control allow you to take better photos? Maybe. For the shootout, I traveled with the two flagship phones to Half Moon Bay to capture some of the same set of photos after Apple's Glow Time event in Cupertino. As always, I looked through the comparison photos on a monitor to better tell their differences. I'm excited for this one because it could effectively show me which is the best camera phone for the rest of the year. I was on the beach for these shots, and it's a perfect spot to see how their main cameras compare. Look quickly, and you might think they're the same, but they're not. If you zoom into the red Adirondack chair, there's more detail with the iPhone, especially with the textures around the chair and the screws around it. And while the Galaxy S24 Ultra delivers an excellent shot, it's too aggressive with the color saturation, which gives the iPhone the more true-to-life look. Next up, I stopped by the brewery in Half Moon Bay with the Tom Sky team to grab a drink at the bar, and it was the perfect place to see how they handle dynamic range. That's because the inside was pretty dark, but the windows on the outside let in the strong light. My eyes instantly gravitate towards the strong contrast look with the Galaxy S24 Ultra, but when compared to the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it blows out the highlights. As a result, the outside area loses detail, while the iPhone does a better job of neutralizing the exposure throughout the shot. This next one's tough because it's so close between them color-wise. In most of the photos I captured, the Galaxy S24 Ultra tends to cast the more saturated colors. But with this mosaic shot I shot down in downtown Half Moon Bay, it's an even matchup. I really like the colors here. They're bright and they're punchy to the eye. So for me, it comes down to the exposure. The iPhone 16 Pro Max does a better job because the Galaxy S24 Ultra is a smidge bright, resulting in the colors becoming too washed out. Apple wasn't kidding around when it said that the iPhone 16 Pro Max is much improved with macro photography. Not only was I able to get much closer to the flower while keeping most of it in focus, it also captures more detail. If you look in the middle, you can even make out a hidden spider there. The Galaxy S24 Ultra also captures an incredible shot, but the over-sharpening effect makes it look too processed when I zoom into it. Again, they're evenly matched in the zoom department because they carry telephoto cameras with 5x optical zoom lenses. For these shots, I really have to pixel peep because they're similar when I look at the overall picture. They're evenly exposed for the most part, but the iPhone 15 Pro Max does better in the shadows, which you can see in the tree in the lower left. However, the Galaxy S24 Ultra shot has a slightly sharper look. It's hard to see unless you zoom in, like the letters underneath the giant eye in the middle, as well as the same tree in the lower left corner. If coverage is important to you, you'll get more of it with the iPhone 16 Pro Max's 12 megapixel front-facing camera. At arm's length, it offers a wider field of view compared to the S24 Ultra's 12 megapixel one, but when it comes to image quality, I prefer the Samsung because of the better details. If you zoom into my face, the Galaxy S24 does a better job of gathering more detail and definition with my facial features, like my eyebrows and the script around my chin. But I will say that the iPhone has a more even exposure. I shot these portrait photos of my colleague Kate, who's showing off her new Apple Watch Series 10 on her wrist. The first thing that stands out to me are the saturated colors of the Galaxy S24 Ultra. You could say it gives the photo that extra pop, but the iPhone's more true to life. On top of that, the iPhone 16 Pro Max's main camera again pulls in the crisper details in these shots at one-time zoom. Take a look at the band on her Apple Watch. It has more definition on it, while the S24 Ultra looks more smudgy. Both do a great job at isolating her from the background, but I like the softer look of the background with the new iPhone. Apple's refreshed Ultrawide camera mainly gets my attention in these shots because of its brighter looks and better dynamic range performance. The colors are more realistic, especially when the Galaxy adds a lot more saturation to the greens in the shot. These panoramas have massive file sizes, but rightfully so because they contain a lot of detail. Overlooking Half Moon Bay itself, there's plenty of details captured in both, like the boat in the water and the pink flowers on the right. The only reason I'm giving it to the iPhone 16 Pro Max is because of its even exposure. The right half of the image retains the same exposure as the left, while the Samsung comes out a tad underexposed. And if you zoom into the shadowed part of the bush in the middle, the iPhone's better dynamic range performance draws out more details. At the same brewery from earlier, I took these shots of my beer in a darker part at the bar. I like how the iPhone 16 Pro Max pulls off the brighter image and how it handles the strong light source that's reflecting off the back. The Galaxy S24 Ultra looks dark and has this color fringing in the area in the back where the light reflects from. I also want to share these other low light shots that my boss took at a park in the late evening. The iPhone again easily pulls off the brighter shot, which I can see with the grass in the foreground, and the sign on the left looks much sharper. I don't say this often, but it pays off to be last. Being the last to release a flagship in 2024, the iPhone 16 Pro Max benefits from a much improved performance that lets it cruise to the finish line here. Now, before you leave a comment, the areas where I see the biggest improvements is how it performs better with its dynamic range, which brightens up the shadows to draw out the details that are otherwise hidden. I also know that its upgraded ultrawide camera gets a boost to deliver sharper details and more dynamic range. As for Galaxy S24 Ultra, it's still an excellent camera phone that only loses out by a sliver in each of the categories. But then again, it's been out since the beginning of the year. Of course, I'm eager to see how Samsung responds back next year with the Galaxy S25 Ultra. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I know you will. Don't forget to watch our full iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max review with Mark on the channel. I'll be following up soon with a photo shootout against the Pixel 9 Pro XL, so keep an eye out for that. Follow us on social @TomsGuide. I'm John V. I'll see you in my next video.